Tonight's story comes from a stretch of road that locals know better than to travel after midnight. They will take the long way around, at 40 minutes to the drive. Pay for a toll they do not need to pay. Anything to avoid Kilometer 9. The ones who laugh at that superstition and drive it anyway tend to stop laughing somewhere around the 8th kilometer, when the headlights catch something white at the shoulder of the road and something in the chest goes very quiet. This is one of those stories, and this one does not end the way the driver planned. She was standing with her back to me and she was not moving. I almost missed her. The rain was coming down hard enough that my wipers could not keep up, and the headlights were catching so much water in the air that everything beyond 30 feet looked like static. But there was white at the shoulder where there should have been nothing, and I eased off the accelerator without thinking about it. I thought she was hurt. That was the only thought I had. Someone is hurt and standing alone on the highway in the rain at midnight, and I am going to stop. My cousin had told me about Kilometer 9 once, years ago, the way people tell those stories, halfway joking, watching your face for a reaction. I had laughed. I remembered laughing. I was not laughing now because I was not thinking about it at all. I was thinking about a girl who needed help. I pulled over 12 feet ahead of her and left the hazards on. I looked in the side mirror. She had not moved. Still facing away from me, toward the trees, white dress soaked flat against her back, black hair hanging completely still despite the wind that was shaking the Kogon grass on both sides of the road. Her hair was not moving. I noticed that, and I did not know what to do with it, so I opened my door and stepped into the rain. I called out to her, asked if she was all right. She turned around. Let me tell you about myself, so you understand I am not someone who panics. I drove long-haul freight for 11 years on that highway system. Manila down to the southern provinces and back, 3 runs a week, mostly night driving because the roads clear out after 10 and you can make better time. I have seen accidents. I have pulled people from wreckage. I stopped once for a man who had been walking the highway for 6 hours in the heat with no shoes and no water, and I drove him 4 towns over to his family without thinking twice about it. I am not superstitious by nature. My mother is. My Lola kept a small altar near the front door of the house I grew up in and would never let us point at a rainbow or step over a sleeping child, and I respected that the way you respect things that matter to someone you love, without necessarily believing them yourself. Kilometer 9 on the old Maharlika stretch is a section I had driven at least 400 times. Straight road, gentle bend at the 8.5 mark, a concrete kilometer post on the right shoulder that the municipal road crew repainted every 2 years. Past it on the left, maybe 20 meters into the tree line, the burned foundation of a house that had been there as long as anyone could remember. No one ever rebuilt on it. No one ever explained why in any way that satisfied me. The girl in the white dress was standing 3 meters from that kilometer post. When she turned around, she looked perfectly ordinary. Young, maybe 19 or 20, face wet from the rain, expression blank and calm the way a person looks when they have moved past distress into something quieter on the other side of it. She looked at me the way you look at someone you have been expecting. She said one word. She said, "Please." I told her to get in the car. She sat in the passenger seat and she did not drip. I did not notice it immediately. I was focused on the road, getting back into the lane, watching the rain. But at some point I became aware that my own shirt was soaked through and sticking to the seat back, and there was a puddle under my left foot from my sandal. I looked at the passenger seat. Dry. The seat was completely dry. Her dress, which I had seen completely saturated with rain, was dry. Her hair was dry. The floor mat on her side was dry. I asked her where she was going. She said the next town. She said her name was Marisol and she had been waiting a long time. I asked her how long. She said she did not know anymore. Something about the way she said it closed my throat for a moment. I kept my eyes on the road. I turned the radio on because I needed something ordinary in the car with us. Static. Nothing but static on every frequency, which does not happen on that stretch because 3 stations come in clean even in bad weather. I turned it off. She was looking out the passenger window, not at the road ahead or the trees going past, at her own reflection in the glass. And she was smiling at it in a way that was not connected to anything happening in the car. Private smile, like a conversation I was not part of. I checked the kilometer marker we passed. 11. I had somehow already passed 10 and 9 behind me, but I had not seen the kilometer 9 post. I had not seen the bend. I had not seen the burned foundation on the left. I had simply arrived at 11 without passing through 9. I asked her how she had ended up on the road alone. She turned from the window and looked at me and said she was not alone. She said she had not been alone since the first one stopped for her. I should have stopped the car then. I know that. I have replayed it enough times to know exactly the moment when I still had a choice. But the rain was heavy and there was nowhere to pull over safely, and some part of me was still insisting on a rational explanation for all of it. Damp-resistant fabric. Trick of the light on the kilometer posts. A young woman who had experienced something traumatic and was not speaking clearly because of it. I held on to that until she put her hand on my arm. Her hand was cold in a way that had nothing to do with temperature. It was cold the way the word cold applies to things that are no longer generating any heat of their own. I looked down at her hand and the skin was the color of old candle wax and the fingers were slightly wrong, bent at the second joint at an angle that no hand bends naturally, and I could see the tendons pressing against the skin from the inside like something beneath was pulling them. I looked at her face. It was not the face I had seen in the rain at the shoulder of the road. The features were the same, but the expression was entirely gone, replaced by something that was not a face so much as a face-shaped arrangement of the correct parts in the correct positions with nothing behind it operating them. Like a house with all the lights off. When she spoke, her mouth moved slightly ahead of the words, a small terrible delay, the way a film goes out of sync. She said she had been waiting at kilometer 9 for 31 years. She said the ones who stopped always brought her a little further along the road. She said she was almost where she needed to be. She said I had been so kind to stop. She said she just needed a little more time with me. The car went dark. Not the headlights. I mean the interior of the car, the dashboard glow, the light from my phone, the green indicator light on the hazard button. All of it, gone. Driving blind in the rain with her hand on my arm and the cold spreading up through the shoulder into my chest, and I could not feel my foot on the accelerator because I could not feel my foot. I screamed. I hit the horn. I swerved without meaning to, and the tires hit gravel, and I overcorrected, and the car spun once on the wet road and came to a stop in the grass at the shoulder. The lights came back. Every light, bright and ordinary. The passenger seat was empty, dry. Not a wrinkle in it. I sat in that car for 40 minutes before I could drive again. I did not get out. I did not look behind me at the tree line. I stared at the road ahead until my hands stopped shaking enough to grip the wheel, and then I drove. I did not stop again until I reached the depot in the next town, where I sat in the parking lot under the fluorescent lights until the sun came up. I told my dispatcher I needed 2 weeks off. He did not ask questions. He told me I looked like I had seen a man an angle and laughed. I did not laugh. I talked to an old driver at the depot, a man named Carding who had been running that highway since before I was born. I described what had happened without using the location. He listened without interrupting, and when I finished he asked me one question. He asked if I had seen her face clearly when she first turned around at the shoulder. I said yes. He was quiet for a moment. Then he told me something that the other drivers know but do not talk about outside the community. He said the ones who see her face when she first turns and still stop for her are the ones she marks. He said stopping the car is not what lets her in. He said she gets in at the moment you decide to stop, before you even reach her. She gets in when you make the choice. He said I was lucky the car spun out. He said the ones who make it all the way to the next town with her are found parked on the shoulder 2 kilometers past the town boundary, engine running, alone, completely unresponsive, like something had been removed from behind their eyes. He said they usually come back to themselves after a few days. He said usually. I drive a different route now. I have for 2 years. The extra distance costs me time and fuel, and I have never once regretted it. But some nights on the new route in the rain, I see something white at the shoulder of the road up ahead, and I grip the wheel and I do not slow down and I do not look. Because I know now that she does not only wait at kilometer 9. She waits wherever you are afraid she might be. You've been listening to the 3 a.m. Scary Stories podcast. If you want more eerie, unsettling, and unforgettable stories like this, consider subscribing so you don't miss the next one. Until next time, keep your doors locked, keep your eyes open, and try not to wake up at 3 a.m.